A spy spent 2 years writing code for an open-source project. Real code. Helpful code. Hundreds of commits. Code reviews. Friendly messages. Building trust. Then they planted a backdoor that would have given them access to virtually every Linux server on the internet. It was caught by accident, because SSH was half a second too slow. If one engineer hadn't been benchmarking that day, you would never have heard this story, because no one would have known. xzutiliz is a compression library. You've never heard of it. It's on every Linux machine ever built. It compresses packages, kernel images, log files. It's the kind of software nobody thinks about, like plumbing. For 13 years, it was maintained by one person, a Finnish developer named Lasse Collin, alone, unpaid, as a hobby project. Now, here's why xzutiliz was the perfect target. Many Linux distributions patch OpenSSH to work with systemd. This creates a dependency chain. OpenSSH links to libsystemd. Libsystemd links to libsma. xzutiliz compromise. Libsma? You compromise SSH on most Linux servers on Earth. One library, one maintainer, no budget, no team, no institution. But here's the detail that changes everything. There's a reason the attacker chose this target, and it wasn't technical. January 26, $20.21. A GitHub account appears. Usernode GIT75. Display name GITN. First contribution, not to xzutiliz, to a different project called libhashes, a small commit. Changed one function. Merged without discussion. In October 2021, they make their first xzutiliz commit, an editor config file, completely harmless. Then months of real work begin. Hundreds of commits, bug fixes, performance improvements, thoughtful code reviews. Messages like, "Thanks for the PR and the helpful links." Overall, this seems like a nice improvement. Friendly, collaborative, patient. For 2 years, by late 2022, Lasse Collin changed the bug reporting email to forward to both himself and Jia Tan. By March 2023, Jia Tan was making official releases, signing them with their own key. They were practically co-maintainer. But Jia Tan didn't earn that trust alone. They had help. In April 2022, new accounts appeared on the XZ mailing list. Accounts that had never contributed anything, and they started attacking Lasse Collin. A user named Jigar Kumar wrote, "Progress will not happen until there is new maintainer. The current maintainer lost interest or doesn't care to maintain anymore." Then, is there any progress on this? Jia, I see you have recent commits. Why can't you commit this yourself? Notice that, directly pointing to Jia Tan as the solution. Another account, Dennis Enns, went further. Collin had publicly mentioned struggling with mental health. Dennis wrote, "I am sorry about your mental health issues, but it's important to be aware of your own limits." Think about that for a second. A state intelligence operation weaponized a volunteer's mental health disclosure, used it to pressure him into handing over the keys. If this story surprises you, subscribe, because the technical part is even more terrifying. Collin responded publicly. "I haven't lost interest, but my ability to care has been quite limited, mostly due to long-term mental health issues." He gave Jia Tan full access. Jigar Kumar, Dennis Enns, and a third account named Hans Janssen were all sock puppets. Fake personas. Coordinated. None existed before or after the operation. February 23, 2024. After 2 years of preparation, Jia Tan plants the backdoor. And the way they hit it? This is where it gets scary. Layer 1. 2 files committed to the repository disguised as test data. Normal-looking, compressed files. Who audits test data? but they contained the payload. Layer 2, a build script modified, but only in the release tarballs, not in the Git repository. Anyone auditing the source code on GitHub would never see it. Distros use tarballs to build packages. Layer 3, the payload was extracted through multiple layers of bash obfuscation. Security researchers called it impressively clever. Layer 4, the backdoor only activated under specific conditions. Excise 6, Lenten 64 architecture, Linux with glibc, GCC compiler, Debian or Red Hat packages, process named SHD. If any condition failed, the code lay dormant, and what it did when active, it replaced OpenSSH authentication function. Any connection carrying the attacker's cryptographic signature bypassed all security, any username, any password, full remote access, zero log entries. The attacker's key was hidden using steganography, scattered across 456 machine instructions as individual bits, encrypted with CHA-20, verified with ED448 signatures, a master key to hundreds of millions of servers, and nobody would ever see it in the logs. March 27, 2024, a Microsoft engineer named Andres Freund is benchmarking PostgreSQL, completely unrelated to security. He needs a quiet system, low noise, and he notices something odd. SSH is using too much CPU. Connections are failing, wrong usernames, normal stuff, but the CPU usage is wrong. He profiles it. The profiler shows CPU time in liblazma, a compression library, in an SSH process. That makes no sense. And the profiler can't tell which function is using the CPU. That's even more suspicious. His own words. I was doing some micro-benchmarking at the time. Saw SSHD processes were using a surprising amount of CPU. Got suspicious. He added, really required a lot of coincidences. He remembered a Valgrind warning from weeks earlier, connected the dots, and his world shifted. It felt surreal. I wondered if I had really discovered a backdoor. There were moments where I thought I'd just had a bad night of sleep and had some fever dreams. March 29, 2024, he publishes his findings. The internet catches fire. The backdoor shipped in XEUTEL's 5.6 distribution and was discovered March 29th. 33 days. Fedora 40 stable was weeks away from shipping with it. Debian stable was approaching freeze. If Freund hadn't noticed that 500 milliseconds, Fedora ships, Debian ships, Ubuntu ships. Every major Linux distro on Earth carries a state-sponsored backdoor into production. Former Facebook security chief Alex Stamos said, "This could have been the most widespread and effective backdoor ever planted in any software product. A master key to hundreds of millions of computers around the world. 33 days. Half a second of latency. One curious engineer. That's what stood between a spy operation and the keys to the internet. So who is Jia Tan? We don't know, and we may never know. The GitHub account used a VPN with a Singaporean IP. The commits were time-stamped in China's time zone. UTC +8, but security researchers found something odd. Jia Tan worked on Chinese holidays, Spring Festival, Qingming, the biggest holidays in China, but they didn't work Christmas or New Year's, and several commits accidentally used a different tomb zone. UTC +2 in winter, UTC +3 in summer, Eastern European time. The leading theory, Russia's SVR, intelligence agency, the same group behind the SolarWinds attack, same patience, same sophistication, same years-long infiltration of trusted software, but we don't know for certain. Whoever Jia Tan is, one person or a team, They left 0 traces. No leaked IPs. No reused identities. No mistakes. The XZ backdoor wasn't a technical failure. It was a human failure. One volunteer maintained critical infrastructure for 13 years. Alone, unpaid. When he burned out, when he asked for help, the help that arrived was a state intelligence operation disguised as a friendly contributor. The sock puppet accounts didn't just pressure Colin. They weaponized his vulnerability. They took a man who publicly said he was struggling and used that disclosure as a weapon. The OpenSSF and OpenJS Foundation warned this may not be an isolated incident. Similar social engineering attempts were detected targeting JavaScript projects. The invisible infrastructure of the internet is built on volunteers, and adversaries know exactly where to push. 500 milliseconds. That's what saved us. A compression library nobody thinks about. A burned-out maintainer nobody helped. A spy nobody detected. For 2 years, and one engineer who happened to be curious about a half-second delay. The next Jia Tan is already committing code somewhere. The question is whether anyone will notice. Title suggestions. 5 options. 1. The spy who coded for 2 years. The XZ backdoor. 50 chars. 2. 500 milliseconds. Saved the internet, the XZ utel story. 46 chars. 3. A spy spent 2 years building trust, then planted a backdoor. 59 chars. 4. How one engineer caught a state-sponsored backdoor by accident. 60 chars. 5. The open source spy thriller nobody saw coming. 47 chars.